Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this SalesFuel special presentation, 1001 Ways to Re-engage Your Sales Team, helping people do better what they do best, with our special guest, Dr. Bob Nelson. Before we get started today, please type your questions in the chat box as you have them. Any questions that you've asked that we haven't answered, we'll answer post-webinar to you by email. Also, keep in mind, we will be sending links to the recording and slide deck after this webinar to all registrants, so watch your inboxes. Also, we have a short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd like your feedback on it, on how we did, so please fill that out. Let's go back then to the back a slide right there. Welcome, everybody. I'm C. Lee Smith. I will be your host for today's webinar. In addition to being the CEO and founder of SalesFuel, I'm also a certified behavioral analyst and have been recognized as one of the world's leading sales consultants for coaching and training by Selling Power magazine for 3 straight years. I've authored 2 Amazon bestsellers entitled Hire Smarter, Sell More and Sales Cred, How Buyers Qualify Sellers. You'll often see me on stage as a keynote speaker and as the co-host of the Manage Smarter show on iHeartRadio and C-Suite TV. Our featured guest today is Dr. Bob Nelson. He is a management and motivation business author of over 30 books that have collectively sold over 5 million copies. He is the president of Nelson Motivation, Inc., and has presented on 6 continents and worked with 80% of the Fortune 500 companies. I'll let you do the math on that. One of his titles we are most interested in talking about today is 1001 Ways to Engage Employees, How Help People Do Better What They Do Best. We also have John Powers, who is a director of enterprise SaaS sales for SalesFuel. John has been serving clients in the fintech, healthcare, agriculture, communications, and manufacturing industries for more than 20 years. He has a degree in psychology from the University of Nebraska and has spent 16 years leading a major Midwest human services agency specializing in operations, continuous quality improvement, and hiring and developing a full range of talent. And also a thank you to Adam Ambro, who is the engineer for today's webinar, and to Audrey Strong, who will be helping everyone out fielding questions and generally assisting me with running the webinar today. Let's go to the next slide. Before we get started today, we want to have everyone take a quick poll. So I'm going to launch a poll right now in your on the session right now, and here it is. In the past 12 months, has it been easier or harder for you to engage your employees? And you have 3 options there to select one of the following: easier than it was, it's easier now than it was 12 months ago, harder than it was 12 months ago, about the same as it was 12 months ago. And we'll give you a few moments there to select your answer, and we'll have those rolling in. Okay, I think that we've got some trends emerging here already. Okay, Adam, let's go ahead and let's end that. I'm going to close the poll right now. And here are the results, by the way. So about 61% of you believe that it's harder now than it was 12 months ago to engage your employees. 11% say it's easier, 28% about the same. So for you 61%, you're in the right place. For the 28% of you, it's about the same. It's no doubt it's a challenge. And for the 11% of you, that's easier. My hat's off to you. So let's go ahead and proceed then with the webinar. Next slide, Adam. As a reminder, for attending today's webinar through the end, you're going to get a free gift, a free paperback copy of Dr. Bob Nelson's book. The first 100 attendees of this webinar who provide their physical email address will get this shipped directly to you by mail. Next
physical
slide.
mailing address.
Yeah, that's right, physical mailing address. Next slide. And also, you're going to get a bonus free gift, a free paperback copy of Dr. Bob Nelson's new book, Work Made Fun Gets Done. The first 100 attendees of this webinar who provide their physical mailing address will also get this book shipped directly to them as our thanks for attending today. Next slide. This webinar is sponsored by CoachFeed by SalesFuel. It is the new sales micro-coaching platform through Slack and email to help improve your salespeople in just 2 minutes a day. Learn more at coachfeed.com. Next slide. But also, right after this webinar, you're going to get a 20-minute demo of the new CoachFeed sales micro-coaching platform. And also a special offer for all those who attend, past the webinar. They actually see the demo today. SalesFuel's John Powers will answer all of your questions. Next slide. And we've already done the poll. Let's go ahead. Next slide. Today's presenter is Dr. Bob Nelson. He is a leading expert on employee recognition, employee engagement. And I had mentioned about the 5 million books that he has sold. And, if you don't have one of the books that are shown here on this slide, you should have at least one of them. I've got 5 of them myself. And also he has an MBA in organizational behavior from UC Berkeley, a PhD in management education. And I mentioned 80% of the Fortune 500 companies, but he's also has appeared extensively on national media, and you see some of the logos of the places where he has been quoted and interviewed. So you're in for a real treat today. Next slide. And here are some logos of some of those companies as well, that we had mentioned, the Fortune 500 company, some really big and recognizable names. So you're in really good hands today. So without further delay, Dr. Bob, take it away.
Thank you so much. And here we go. Okay, I'm not seeing any slides, Adam.
I can share my screen.
Okay. Very good. Delighted to be with you here today. And let me just jump right in because we won't have that much time. I'll start with one of my favorite quotes. Men and women want to do a good job, a creative job, and if they provide the proper environment, they will do so. So said Bill Hewitt, co-founder of Hewlett Packard. I think this is relevant because we all expect the best from people, but we forget the power we have as a manager in making that happen. And really, to me, it's about setting up the proper environment. It's meeting people at the energy. Everyone wants to do a good job. If you give them half a chance, they typically will. And so it's looking beyond just what you're paying them to how you treat them in the soft side. So we're talking about the soft side of management and how to maximize what you can do to get the best from people today. In the current tight economy, where it's very difficult to find talent and is expected to get even tighter based on demographics and whatnot, people are working harder, but they find that they're less valued. 85% of employees feel overworked and underappreciated. Right now, 67% of companies report engagement is down, currently at an all-time low since they've been tracking that. And so our group kind of confirmed that same thing. 56% of employers report they're somewhat or completely dissatisfied with their current job for any number of reasons. And if you get dissatisfied enough, you plan to get a new job. 54% of employees right now plan to find new jobs as they're able, as they sort out the post-pandemic world. This includes, according to the Harvard Business Review, 25% of your top performers, however you measure that, are the ones that are most likely to leave and have left in the last year. And 76% of the younger workers, the millennials and Gen Z, who average tenure is just 18 months, and they are quick to leave if things don't meet their expectations. So this is a tough challenge to be up with, and finding the best people and then getting the best from them and then holding on to them. But if you do the things that I'm going to be advocating, you're going to have a better chance of making that happen. We know from the Gallup organization that engaged employees are 18% more likely are more productive than non-engaged employees, 12% more profitable, 27% less prone to absenteeism, and 51% less likely to leave their jobs. The field of employee engagement was pretty much created by the Gallup organization some 24 years ago with their longitudinal research, and now extends worldwide to millions of employees. So they're constantly looking at what's the difference between people just showing up from work versus people that are truly engaged and giving it their best shot each and every day. And we're going to elaborate on the key variables for making that happen. So the question before us, how can we best get increased employee engagement? I've got 4 specific strategies to share with you. We're going to do 2 before a quick break and 2 after. I'll give them all to you right now just as an overview. The first is creating a clear and compelling vision. The second is recognize and reward high performance. Topic very close to my heart. Focusing on career growth and development. And finally, the role of one's manager that has the most impact in all of this. So digging right in, the first one, creating a clear and compelling vision. Now, 70% of employees today say that they get their sense of purpose is defined by their work, and 60% say they want to get more purpose from their work. So this to me comes from making the connection to the overall mission and vision of the organization. We know that all performance starts with clear goals and expectations. The best goals are few in number, specific in focus. The best goals are stretch goals. They're not too easy, they're not too hard. This is why if you have a sales team, I would advocate not just rewarding the top sales performer, like one person take all, whatever the benefit might be from that, but instead setting your goals so that each person could be a winner. So it might be better to have whoever makes 20% more than of their goal than they did last quarter or last month would be in the category of being recognized. You'll get more out of people to move the middle than to just rely on recognizing the top performer. Who inevitably had help from others to make that happen anyway. And finally, the best goals today are collaborative in nature. The days of just telling people what to do are long gone. Today, you've got to have a conversation with people about the goals, what they think is doable, and challenge them to do their best. And in that process of having the discussion, you gain their buy-in, so they truly own the goal. Just telling someone to do something is very short-lived, and you won't get the best impact from them in that process. So without belaboring the importance of goal setting, this is one of the main drivers of performance, setting up the job on the front end. And the way, if you do that well, it aids the motivation in helping people achieve the goals that are established, because they truly own them. Give you some other tips to make this tie to the larger vision of the organization. It doesn't happen by accident. You've got to systematically constantly be looking back to the mission and company mission and goals, vision, tying to the department goals, and ideally to the individual objectives and KRAs. Every company has core values. You can't just post them on the wall and think they'll be integrated. You've got to talk about them, to use examples with them, with your team, to help them understand the importance of that in using the values on a daily basis as they do their job. Quarterly meet and greets with company execs is a great way to, again, instill the larger vision of what we're trying to do. And periodic town hall meetings with the CEO also goes a long way in that regard, to hear how top management is viewing the mission of the organization, and have it speak to everyone. If you have an all hands meeting for all employees, attend that with your team, and then talk about with the team afterwards what they heard that would affect the group's goals and their individual efforts. All these are important strategies for helping tie the individual to the larger mission and strategy of the organization. And along the way, that gives them greater purpose in doing the job. Now, the second major goal here, strategy for getting more engaged workforce, is very close to my heart. I did my doctoral dissertation on the topic of employee recognition and why managers do or don't do it, and how to do it better. Recognizing and rewarding high performance is a key driver of engagement. In fact, in the book that you're going to receive, 1,001 Ways to Engage Employees, I have the top 10 variables in sequential order from the first chapter, and the first chapter is all about recognition, because the research suggests that 56% of how engaged someone is comes directly from how well they're recognized for the job well done. Recognition I define very simply as acknowledging and appreciating people for their achievements. And from my research, although all employees want recognition almost universally, that actually very few actually get it. Only 12% on the next slide indicate that they receive recognition in important ways that are meaningful to them. 34% say that the recognition they receive in the organization doesn't speak to them. It's not meaningful. So years of service, for example, or a holiday party might be a nice thing to do, but it doesn't make people individually feel valued for the job they did. To make that connection, it's got to come back to the individual for the specifics of what they did. And this is all, even though 80% of managers feel they're pretty good at this topic. So I call this the knowing doing gap. Most managers know, yeah, recognition is important. I know it's important to make people feel good, and that I value them working for me in the job they do. But how often you actually show that is going to be defined by, what your employees say about this. And universally, I find only 12% of employees say they feel recognized in important ways. So there's a lot of room for improvement for everybody on whatever type of organization you have. And I'm going to talk about how specifically you can make that happen. Next slide. Again, this one variable has been demonstrated as being the most impactful driver of employee engagement and research shared in the Harvard Business Review. And so what does this look like in practice? I recommend asking all employees about their recognition preferences, how they'd like to be recognized when they do a good job. And you can do that as a group, you can do it individually. Have a one-on-one discussion on, hey, when you do a good job, how do you like to be called out? What can I do to help thank you for that? And if you haven't had that conversation, it beats guessing. And I find a lot of managers will do something that they value, but maybe their employee doesn't. It's not that hard just to find out what's important to your employees, and then keep that in mind when they've been successful. You want to thank, recognize, and praise people daily for them to feel it weekly. And weekly is really the minimum that Gallup reports that people need recognition, to be recognized by their manager at least a weekly basis for what they've done well. Since you can't get to everyone all the time, if you make it part of your daily routine and systematically get around to everyone, you'll increase the odds of reaching everyone on a weekly basis. Another simple strategy for doing this is to start your meetings with recognition. Call out some good news for the team, individual good news, and then open it up to allow other people to share. Now, if you haven't done this before the first time, they're not going to have much to say, but just planting the seed, the next time they'll say, yeah, I've got something to share. And then someone else might say, well, I've got something that could beat that even. And you'll get them involved with this topic. It's not just what comes from the managers, what comes from one's team colleagues as well. And ideally, if you can make it happen, from upper management and other areas of the company as well. One simple technique that again, I advocate, you could do it in person, you could do it virtually, is called a praise barrage. And that is, next slide, is simply taking time, in the meeting, before the meeting starts, to go around and say, we're gonna, as I call someone's name, I'll go around the group here, it's like 10 minutes. I'm gonna ask people to shout out things that they value in working with that person. 100% positive. Person's so helpful, they jump in, they're creative, they help me when I most need it, whatever it might be, and just go from person to person. You can do that verbally, you can do it with index cards, like you take a moment and just jot down thanks that you might owe to anyone else on our team. and just jot a few notes. Just take a few minutes to do that. Distribute those to everyone. I tell you what, if you get 5 or 6 index cards of thanks for specific things that you've done, whatever you're recognized for, you can become better at. What gets recognized gets repeated. So it seems like a frivolous, simple activity, but it has enormous power as it speaks to people and what they're working for, and it internalizes their efforts, and they will double down and naturally do those, be even better at those things, and can become great at those things, just from the simple power of recognition. When possible, of course, you want to call out special efforts that people have done and celebrating the team when they have successes. And this is again simple, but I find a lot of times the teams they talk about celebration, and then they get to the end of a project or end of a sales goal, and they're already into the next one. Or sometimes the reward for finishing a project is you get 2 of them to work on, and we kind of we skip the recognition. We're too busy for it. Don't skip it. It's even if you do something simple, even if you do bring in ice cream sundaes, even if you have the CEO come in and serve pancakes at breakfast on Friday for the team, by being creative, it's better to do something quick and easy that's meaningful than to skip taking advantage of good news when it occurs. Next slide. Drilling down a little bit further, in my research, I looked at 52 explicit behaviors that employees could receive to see which they most valued when they what most helped them to do good work. And I was surprised to find that 4 of those specific behaviors were types of thanks and praise listed right here: personal praise, written praise, electronic praise on email or voicemail, public praise in front of the group, in front of maybe the company, even in the local newspaper. And initially, my reaction to this was, well, isn't praise? Aren't these all just one bucket? And what I realized is that these are mutually exclusive. This topic is so rich that different forms of praise have different meanings to people. Think about it. When you praise someone personally to their face, it has a different meaning than if you give them a handwritten note or a formal letter citation for having done a good job that they're going to save in a victory file or they're going to share with their loved ones. It means something different than if you leave a voicemail that they're going to listen to 4 or 5 times. It means something different than if you do it in front of others. You've got to fire on each of these cylinders to maximize the power of employee recognition. And to just build on that a little bit with the next slide. To me, doing recognition, you can do it in 10 seconds. It could be it needs to be as soon, as sincere, as specific, as personal, as positive, and proactive as possible. Now, that sounds like a lot. You can do it in 10 seconds in the hallway. Timing is critical on this. The sooner you recognize someone, the more you reinforce the behavior they did, the more likely it will be repeated. Okay? It needs to be sincere. It's got to come from the heart. Sometimes it's hard to teach people that, but part of sincerity is built in with the specifics. So when you say something, give someone feedback about what they did, give them your evidence. What was your evidence they did a good job? What did you hear from the client? What did you see in the numbers? What did you get from a colleague in the report? Use those specifics because it gives credibility to the praising. Ideally, you want to do it in person. That can be hard to do these days when people are so distributed. But then, likewise, you can call them and give them a quick praising. You can, of course, when you get a chance to see them in person, to make time to call out and meet with them about the successes they've been having. You want to keep it 100% positive, which should go without saying, but I've learned a lot of managers, the way they praise is they'll say something nice. Hey, thanks for the report for my 2 o'clock meeting. And then they'll immediately take it away. There are a lot of typos in it, and you end up leaving the person with the negative, and you know, having them dread their job. I say stow that. When you give someone praise, keep it 100% positive. Save the things they're not doing right. Save that for a future development meeting where you give them, because you care about them, feedback for how they could be better. But right now, keep it 100% positive. And finally, you got to be proactive. If you're not actively leading the charge on this, looking for ways to recognize people, you're going to end up being reactive, and that's always going to be around the mistakes, the complaints, the things that they did wrong, the fact that the paperwork's late, whatever it is, and that's going to be a drag on their performance instead of an enhancement. So if you got to get out of the hole you might have dug yourself in, where a lot of managers are constantly reactive, and start leading the charge. And you do that by calling out what people have done well. And finally, the next slide, just one more thing, because this is so important, this individual connection with people. It's saying, I saw what you did, I appreciate it. Here's why it's important. You tie it to a larger context of our department goals, of our company mission. And if you really want to leave a mark, get to the level of feelings. Here's how it makes me feel. It's a 1-2 punch to give people practical, specific feedback, and then an emotional charge. That, again, you can do all that in 10 seconds. In fact, Mark Twain you once said he could live for 2 weeks on a good compliment. And I think it's even longer today, because how infrequently people get this in our go-go world where people are constantly on the run. So make this a priority, and you can see great power from it. Next slide. You can praise someone directly, okay, like to their face. You can praise them in front of others, has a different power. You can praise them when they're not around, knowing that 9 times out of 10, word will get back to them. Your boss is really singing your praises in the management team meeting, for example. Oh,
Love this
really?
idea. Love it.
Yeah, well, you know, if you hear it from someone else, then it must be true. You know, sometimes if you praise them directly, you know, can you work late? It's kind of contrived, but wow, to hear it from others, God, you know, it's so build on this. It's a very rich dimension. Next slide. Now this guaranteed to work one-on-one. It works in any team, guaranteed, hands down. If you get going throughout the organization, this is what's in store for you. Research shows that your employees will be 5 times more likely to feel valued, 6 times more likely to strongly endorse your company as a great place to work, 7 times more likely to stay with the company for their career. This is the price of admission right here. Do this. Don't just think about, if I pay people a little bit more, they'll stay longer. No, if you recognize them a little bit more, they're going to stay longer. And 11 times more likely to feel completely committed to their jobs, to you as their manager, to the mission of the organization. This is powerful stuff. And next slide. We know that from research from both Towers Watson as well as Gallup, that committed employees deliver 57% more effort. They go above and beyond on a daily basis to make things happen. They're not watching the clock. They're not just putting in their time, that they are there full force. And it all is unleashed through this intangible element of recognition.
And Bob, how this translates to sales is that if you're
Yes.
providing more effort, you know, and going the extra mile for your customers, that's going to directly impact the bottom line.
Of course. And speaking of next slide. So it kind of begs the question, and I know this is relevant, directly relevant in sales. Why isn't money enough? I tend to find a sense in working with salespeople. If we pay people enough, then they'll be happy. And of course, money does drive sales efforts, but it's not the only thing that drives it. I've never met a salesperson where the recognition wasn't as important. Yes, they'll make more money, but they want to have the focus of attention and the accolades of the team and of their manager, maybe of the president of the company. You know, that's as important as the dollars. My professor, Dr. Drucker, once put it this way: economic incentives are becoming rights rather than rewards. Merit raises are always introduced as rewards for exceptional performance. In no time at all, they become a right, they become an expectation, they become even an entitlement. You have to pay people, and you have to pay them according to the contract, but whether if they give it their full effort and is going to be a more function of how they feel about working for you and how they feel about working for the company. Would you believe that, next slide, that less than 3% of base salary separates average from outstanding performance? Isn't that incredible? What is it that drives the top performers? It's the things that go beyond money. In fact, Rosebeth Moss Kanter on the next slide said that the compensation is the right. You have to pay people. Recognition is a gift. Part of why it works so well is you don't have to do it. If you choose to do it and people know that it's you choosing to do it, that it speaks to them louder and it has a greater impact. So if you just get one thing from this presentation, please take up the topic of recognition as a mantra to reconnect with your people. And next slide. And that takes us to our halftime break.
There we go. So, Dr. Bob, another thing I was thinking about as you were mentioning that is that you know, really good salespeople, will get offers from other companies promising them more money. It's not the money that you pay them that gets them to stay; it's the engagement, it's the purpose. So that's something to kind of keep in mind there. That others are going to promise more money, whether it's real or not is another story. But it's like they're going to promise the moon and the stars when it comes to that.
Leah, it reminds me of another effective sales strategy with recognition is have part of the honor of being top salesperson for the week or the month, whatever, be that you share how you did it with the team, and that becomes part of how you pay back, and and have everyone learn from what that person did, and create that as an honor for that person who is doing the best.
So educating others is one method of motivation. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide here, Adam. Yeah, before I get into that, let me just kind of share that the halftime show is provided as sponsored by SalesFuel Hire. It's the BS detector for hiring salespeople, backed by brain science, help you discover high potentials, unmask sales imposters, avoid toxic troublemakers, and just making a big hiring mistake. You can learn more about this at salesfuel.com/hire. So now we're going to take some Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and start us off. I mentioned motivation, and through the CoachFeed platform, SalesFuel uses a motivators assessment to determine which employees are most motivated by public recognition from their sales managers, and also provides communication tips on how to do it with each individual because they're all different. My question is that what little signals, maybe perhaps nonverbal signals, can managers pick up on in the moment to determine if their appreciation recognition efforts are landing correctly and having the desired impact?
Well, certainly I'd say, make a point of listening. We all have, especially salespeople have a lot to say, and so if you give them a chance to not just talk to them, but to listen to what they have to say, I remember one company I worked with that we would bring in our top salespeople to meet with the executive team to say what they're seeing out there in the marketplace. Who knows better than they do? How often do we tap into that by the executive team who are deploying the resources? Is another just simple common sense approach to link sales to the organization.
Question from Addie Reeves. How do you get buy-in when production goals are set at the executive level based on budget needs?
Yes, boy, that is a challenge, and I'd say that, and this is how, a version of this happens in every company, that certain things are passed down from above. Once they're in your court, do not say, well, here's what they said we got to do. You have to own it yourself as the manager to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Now let's pull our heads together to see how we can best achieve that. How can we best help each other? What do you need to make this happen? Maybe give them some pre-work to think about that first, so when you get together, you each have stuff to share, and then maybe as a team you rank the responses and then the top ones you as a leader help to make sure it happen. And if it requires additional resources, you go to bat for them to get that.
A comment from Joe Ravelli, which I like. This was in response to your praise barrage idea. He says, our organization calls it You Rock. It's during our weekly team meeting, and everyone has a chance to thank someone for their help in the past week. And I hope that when they do that, if you're praising Audrey, you say, Audrey, you rock, and everybody has to say you rock. I think that would be fantastic.
That would be. Another as the more we talk about this, the more I think of sales examples, and another one is like when someone does a great job to make their goal, whatever it is, give them some tools to recognize other people have helped them make that happen. It could be something, it could be Starbucks coupons that they can give the people that help them pull together the proposals, for examples, the support people, because you want them to do it again, right? And
Right.
so you can empower the salesperson to provide the recognition to the people that most helped them, whatever that might look like.
And it
Could be a
doesn't have to be
button.
a lot. It could be a high five and it's a $5, gift card to Starbucks or something. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. So
It
there's
could
no
be the
excuse
same
for not
stuff we're
doing it.
talking about. It could be them praising them in a meeting, or pulling them together, the support team, and to explain how they achieved the goal, and to thank them, call them out individually and for different reasons.
We're
Uh,
going to take one more question, Bob, and then we're going to do another question and answer session at the conclusion here. So go ahead and type those into the question box. Keep those coming. But this one comes from Carrie Carney. I love this question. Any advice for coaching a manager who has unrealistically high expectations and not inclined to show appreciation?
Well, those are two different things. The expectations are being high. I guess there has to be feedback on that in terms of what's realistic, and that could be almost an intervention type thing where, who's the best person to do that? Maybe doing that as a team, maybe during questions of in talking to them. If they don't recognize, that's another type of intervention thing. A lot of times managers, honestly, they don't know the power of this, because maybe in my research I looked at, we get some of this from our upbringing. If your parents didn't do it, it's kind of not known to you. If you didn't have a mentor that pulled you aside and said, always take care of the little guy, that person that helped you, it's a part manners, really, to thank people that have helped you make your goals and helped you look good. So breaking through to that person is key, and I've seen a lot of different strategies to make that happen. Sometimes it's just an emotional pill. It's asking them, it would really mean the world to the group if you could start the meeting with saying, giving good news.
Mhm.
I worked with I worked with ESPN, and they had whenever they had a meeting, they started as a group. They started by naming 5 things that were going well.
Hmm.
And that was the first thing they did, and they didn't go to the second item on their agenda until they did that. It was usually pretty easy, but sometimes it wasn't, because things weren't going well. They would still stick with it to name 5 things that are going well, because that was their homeroom, their foundation, that allowed them to take on the next challenges and obstacles. So
So,
it was important morale and emotional thing for them as well, and they never let that slip by without doing that.
So Carrie mentioned the magic word coaching, and that's an excellent segue into, Bob, your next topic. So next slide on, and take it away.
Yes. Okay. We got 2 more points to cover, and then again, you're gonna get the book that has 10 major themes, and then with examples of each throughout. And the ongoing focus on career growth and development is the second largest leading driver of engagement after recognition. Now, all development is self-development. 90% of which comes during on the job. So it's the next assignment, the next challenge. So having that discussion with people can help you select the activities that will help them stretch and learn and grow, and have the discussions about where they want to go next. In research on why employees leave, done by Engage to Excel, they found that there's a 90% response differential between employees who stay in a company and those that leave regarding this one question. My manager has made a personal investment in my growth and development. Those people that said that this is true were more likely to stay than the people that said, no, my manager doesn't care about my future here. And they already have one foot out the door looking for something else, because that's what they want where they work, where the person they work for is looking out for them, helping them learn and grow. Next slide, give you a personal example in my travels and working with a lot of great companies around the world and around in the U.S. American Express, and I learned from each company I work with. They do this cool thing where they teach their managers a delegation technique called label and link. They tell them that when you have an assignment, when you have a responsibility to delegate to someone, there's two ways you can do it. You can say, hey, bad news, Gary, your turn to be in the bucket. You got to do whatever, inventory or what. You got to do your own more sales paperwork, or you can at the same time, you can do the same assignment in a different way by thinking about what's important to that person, what you know about them, what you know about their aspirations, and linking the assignment to that. So Gary, hey, we got inventory coming up. I immediately thought of you. And that's because I know you want to get into management. This is a key skill area to set you up for a job like that. So I thought this would be a great chance for you to learn this topic. Now I know you got a lot on your plate. If this isn't a good time, just say the word. I won't hold it against you. What are you doing? By saying that, you're giving them choice in the matter. You're making them part of the process. But if you are willing to take it on, there's going to be no such thing as a silly question. I'm going to do the best I can to help you with that regard. And in sales, this could be from moving to an account to more of an enterprise account, for example. That's that jump of saying, hey, if I think you're ready for it, I'll help you get there. It's your choice, though. If you don't think you're ready, we can hold off. And it's a simple technique, but they found that this had enormous power in both having people, and they initially surveyed people to say, what do you want more in your job? And they said they want more development opportunities. And so they brainstormed, well, what would that look like? And this is what they came up with. And since then, they found it's an enormous driver of both attracting talent, because they get a reputation now, and then keeping talent, because people are always growing and learning and taking on more. So it's, again, a simple technique, but powerful one that you can adapt. Next slide. Let me give you some added tips. Discuss job career expectations with new hires, even from the first job. Job one is doing a good job, but once you're able to do that, we're going to be talking about where you want to go next, because everyone's job is to constantly be growing and learning. And part of that will be through the assignments and the tasks that we discussed together. We could hold one-on-one meetings every 2 weeks. My wife's a manager. She does this walking with people. They love it, that they go out for a walk and every 2 weeks, and they talk about how things are going. Ideally, this is the employees' time to ask questions, and it's their agenda. It's not just time to dump more work on them. You've got to try the micro coaching in between those one-on-one meetings, and again, CoachFeed is an incredible tool for doing that. Skip level meetings are where you have an employee talk to their manager's manager at least once a quarter, again, to get a larger perspective and have that person know about you and what your goals and aspirations are. Very powerful. In your immediate team, you can hold project debriefings at the end of sales goals, and occasional lunch and learns to share best practices. And again, on an ongoing basis, this is how people grow. This is how people learn. This is how they think of what's next for them. And because if you're not helping to think what's next for them in your company, at some point they're going to be thinking for themselves, and it's going to be talking to recruiters and interviewing with other companies. So you keep them in the company by having this conversation as part of their job. Next slide. And finally, the role of one's manager. All the things I've said all come back to the manager doing it. So, but I've learned that so many times managers, once they're in the job for a while, they forget how important they are to each of their employees, that you're the most important person for everyone that works for you. And so you've got to think about that every now and then, that the things that you say or the things you don't say, the simply asking someone to lunch, all that has meaning and significance. If you're the most important person in the person's whole work experience, where they spend the bulk of their waking hours. According to Gallup, one's manager is the most important person for any employee in the workplace and has the most influence on their level of engagement. So it's just maybe a reminder here that all the things we've talked about are actions by one's manager. And you have to constantly be aware. It's like when you walk in the building. I know some managers that stop and pause before they open the front door, because they say that they want to feel like they're stepping on stage, and every day people are looking for you as to how it's going, and you communicate that just in your actions of walking to your office. If you brush by someone, you don't say, good morning, how's your weekend? Oh, boss is in a bad mood. And already it has an impact on them and their next conversation with a colleague or a customer even. So you got to have this in mind, that you are constantly broadcasting how things are going. They're looking for how things are going in general, how things are going with me. And so again, the manager is the one that can most point that out. Next slide. Jan Carlson, the CEO of Moments of Truth, of SAS and author of Moments of Truth, said a positive example is the best way to create the right atmosphere. There's so many things you can do to give people the security to take responsibility, the comfort that you're backing them up, that you're supporting them, that their interests are your interests. You want them to succeed, and in so doing, you yourself will succeed. Just in your nonverbals and what's said on a daily basis creates this whole feeling, and is so important. I think that most managers don't they lose sight of that, and they don't make it a strong enough ongoing importance, that the things that they do to connect with people on a daily basis. And next slide. So a couple other tips: take time to get to know each of your employees from the get-go. Of all the places you could have worked, why did you come to work here? Even from the first conversation, be an advocate for each employee and for the group as a whole. I always felt as a manager in companies that I was in charge of kind of protecting the group and keeping other stuff out of their hair, and as they needed things, to go to fight for them so they can do the best job. Set the tone and energy for your group. Be positive, proactive, and forward-looking, which is all research characteristics that the best leaders have. Ask your employees for the input and ideas. 92% of employees want to be asked for the input and ideas from my research. 92%. So it's not that hard to say, hey, who else has an idea how we can handle this? Support and encourage those ideas, even if you don't use everyone. Give them feedback on what was good about it, or what we could do to move it forward, or give them the ability, give them permission to move it forward, and how you could support them doing that. Involve employees in decision making, especially as those decisions affect them and their job they're doing. 89% of employees in my research say they want to be involved in decisions that are made by their manager in their department. It's not that hard to do, and you know what? It'll be a better decision for doing it. And you could just say, I'm in charge of making this decision, but I know it'll be a better decision if I get your input, because you all are closer to the job that we're doing on a daily basis. So let me ask the group how we can best handle this. They'll respect you more for doing that, for just taking the time. Even if you say, I've got to make the final decision, but I want to hear from you. It's not a guarantee I'm going to use everything I hear, but I know I'll be better informed if I take a few minutes to get that from you. Next slide. And so in summary, and this is again really speaks back to the recognition element, the part I feel most strongly about. All behavior is a function of its consequences. Recognition has been called the greatest management principle in the world, that to any consequence, any behavior that any employee does, they've got a positive consequence, a negative consequence, or no consequence. Employees overall say that where they work, they don't get any consequences at all. And if they do get a consequence, it tends to be a negative one. And the manager is quick to catch them doing something wrong, a mistake they made, a policy they violated, a complaint a customer made. And unfortunately, what's used the least is actually the most powerful at driving their ongoing behavior and focus, and that's the positive consequences. Research has shown this has been from 4 times as powerful, or Gallup in their research said 6 times as powerful. Dr. Stephen Covey used to talk about 7 times as powerful. If you want to drive certain behavior and results with your team, with any employee, you will get there faster, more effectively by making a systematic use of positive consequences than anything else you could do as a leader. So with that, I hope that you take that to heart. And again, when you get the book, and my latest book, Work Made Fun Gets Done, is having fun, especially for the younger generation today. Largest generation in the workplace is the millennials, and they very clearly expect work to be fun, and it's not that hard to make it fun, and you're going to find hundreds and hundreds of ideas exactly of what you can do, all by companies that are actually doing it right now. So I've never done 2 books before as a giveaway, so I hope that you get the most out of those. And just one simple strategy, you can take either one and just pass it around your team and ask them to initial ideas they like in the margins, and then turn it into a motivation handbook for your immediate team. And then when someone does a great job, you can see what they called out that they'd like to have happen, and do that for them. So start a set for making that into a valuable resource when you shows up at your doorstep. Thank you
That's
so
great,
much.
Bob. That's really great. I thought that was excellent. Lots of helpful tips. And let me give you a couple bits of housekeeping, everybody, before we head into the final Q&A. Yes, you will get a copy of the slide deck. Yes, you will get a copy, a link to the recording. So check your email for that. As far as those asking questions about providing their physical mailing address, that was asked during the registration form for this webinar. So if you filled that out completely, you've already done that. If you're not sure if you've done that or not, or whatever, you can go ahead and put it in the questions section. That's okay. And that way, if we don't have your email, your mailing address, we'll check there for it.
Yes,
Special thanks.
again, physical mailing address, not email address.
That's right. Because we
Send
can't
the
mail
book to
physical
the
book to your email, right? CoachFeed was the sponsor for today's webinars. CoachFeed by SalesFuel is a way to improve your salespeople in just 2 minutes a day through sales micro coaching using Slack and email, and 3 great sales coaching feeds on sales credibility. Most importantly, sales mindset. Nothing changes till mindset changes. And also there's an account-based coaching feed then for direct revenue generation. You can learn more at coachfeed.com, but also hang around after we do the Q&A session, and John Powers will be doing a demo for about 20 minutes of the CoachFeed platform. Next slide. So yes, 20-minute demo of CoachFeed, John Powers, and we do have a special offer for all those who will be sticking around to attend that. Next slide. And here's a little teaser. It's like we also have the SalesFuel Sales Manager training platform. Now's the time to upskill your sales managers. So if you're a veteran sales manager, great refresher that you can take on your own time, at your own pace. If you're a new sales manager, this is exactly what you need to get started off on the right foot as a sales manager. It will help you immediately increase your effectiveness and your sales growth. You can check it out at salesfuel.com/SMT, and John's going to mention a little bit about that as part of your special offer. Next slide. Okay, we're here now. Time for the Q&A. One of the questions we also get is there a way to contact Dr. Bob? There's Dr. Bob's email address. There's his phone number. There's his website address. So feel free to contact him. Now we're going to take some Q&A that got queued up from in the questions section. So let's see, I saw a couple.
And Lee, just a quick add on there. On my website, I have a store that has all my books, and they're all sold at prices lower than Amazon. So we've got 2 giveaways today, but I've got about 20 other books that are in print, and you can see richness of the topics. 1,501 ways to reward employees, for example, is one of them.
That's a great one. I love that one. I bought that one a few years ago. So I had 2 questions queued up from the audience, but here's one that came in late from Susan McNary that is really important. I found some of our male leads are hesitant to compliment and praise female employees because of the Me Too atmosphere. Any good resources to recommend for this?
Well, do it publicly. Is one way, so that if you're afraid that you're, and I've run into this before, where you're giving feedback to one person privately, and they feel like you're maybe hitting on them or something. So just do it publicly, or do it in a written note to say, and again, the more specifics you provide, the more it's factual. If you just say, oh, you're a great employee, and I like the outfits you wear, that's could get anyone in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
So keep it to the performance, keep it to the facts, and the facts are what you've seen, what you've heard, why you value the job they've done, and why you look to work further with them.
Do it verbally, because if you do it via email and whether in text or an email, something like that can be subject to misinterpretation. So verbally, you have a lot more nonverbal cues and everything like that, so as to properly signal intent. So Carolyn Bass asked the question. She wants you to talk a little bit more about what goes into a skip level session.
Sure. Skip level is simply having the person meet with your manager's manager, or it could be, you know, a mentor, someone else in the organization. But if a lot of people don't have that set up, and so it's just a invitation, and you got to, of course, ask your manager if they'd be willing to do that. But then, you know, I find organizations, I work with corporations where that becomes the norm, that managers know that they're going to be expected to spend some time with people coming up, and that's an opportunity to get to know them, which is powerful in itself, and then to find out about them, and maybe give them some tips from your own career. And so it's, again, it doesn't have to be a long meeting. It could be over lunch, or it could just be very informal, just a 30-minute meeting to spend some time to get to know someone. And I've heard good things about you, and want to see how it's going, and again, what you're seeing out there, and any questions that you might have for me. As simple as that.
Addie Reeves wants to chime in and say, my team now works remotely. Any tips and tricks when you are no longer seeing people except via virtual meeting?
Yes, and that's welcome to the world for everybody. It's and people there's no doubt that people are on Zoom burnout. So you got to shake it up some and have some fun. So spend some time to get to know, you know, no matter how you've been doing it. Next one, say, hey, before we dig in here, I'd like to find out about something about each of you. How about let everyone share, and again, this could be very quickly, everyone share what their favorite movie is, or everyone share, you know, what you do as a hobby when you're uh, not focused on work. And just doing that, you can't help but bring the group closer together. And by talking about something that's non-business, they get more, you'll create connections, and it's a nice break. It's fun. And I had my again, you know, people share their pets. My wife's company just did this, and they had people share, you know, a favorite vacation photo, which then gets people talking about the places they've been and whatnot. There had one person, a young kid, he said, I started this job during the pandemic. I haven't been anywhere, but he got creative, and he used Google 3D, and he showed these pictures of wild animals in his apartment, you know, in different poses. It was a blast, you know. So have fun with it.
Yeah, that was one of your ideas that I read in your new book, Work Made Fun Gets Done. And so the 100 people who attended and registered, the first 100 are going to get a copy of that book. It's like, are there any other thoughts you have on you know, making work more fun for those people that are working remotely?
Well, like anything, it's something, it's a responsibility that can be passed around. When I've had managed, have had different teams, I remember once we did kind of a start the meeting with a joke, and everyone took a different turn at doing that. And some people were, you know, not as good as other doing that. They had a week to practice, and they got a little bit better at telling the joke. Or we used to have vary the meeting format, so we'd have stand-up meetings, or we got to a point where we had pretty engaged groups, so they always had a lot to say. So we had the coconut, that you can only speak if you were holding the coconut, so we passed it around. So
Like
just
Gilligan's
doing,
Island. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So just doing shaking it up. And then of course you can't beat going back to employees and to ask them, what would you like to do? What would you like to do to have a little more fun here at work? And I worked with a company in Seattle, electronics firm. They had the they had the sales manager. He said, hey, if we make this goal, I will shave my head. And then that became the whole running joke. And sure enough, they made the goal, and the person that had the biggest success got to cut the first locks. And in front of the whole company, he had his head shaved. And so again, the more you're willing to risk, and you know, the best humor is self deprecating, and have yourself be the example, the more endearing you'll be to your employees, and the more fun everyone will have.
I could think of no better way to end a Q&A session than with this comment and show of appreciation from Susan Aldridge, which I will echo. Way too short. Wish we had more time, even more time for discussion. Love Bob, been reading his books for years. So Bob, great job. Thank you so much for being with us today. And
I've got two
for
thumbs up right now. So
there you go. We got 3. You got 4 because you got 2 from me. Watch your inbox, everyone, for a PDF of the slide deck as well as a link to the recording. Watch your mailbox then for the 2 books from Dr. Bob. Next slide. And also, if you want to know more about this topic, we have more information from SalesFuel. We have a special report that we've done with ATD Research, the Association for Talent Development, Managers as Coaches. Lots of great research and tips in that report. A weekly newsletter, SalesFuel Weekend, comes to sales managers every Saturday morning. We've got management tips, engagement tips, also selling tips, hiring tips every week. This is fresh and exclusive content from SalesFuel every Saturday. Also, listen and watch me and Audrey Strong on our Manage Smarter show. You can get it wherever podcasts, whatever podcast platform you like to use, but also you can watch us on C-Suite TV. And to get all this, visit the Insights section of salesfuel.com. Next slide. So next up, for those of you that have stayed, we have John Powers. He's here to share a demo of SalesFuel's new CoachFeed sales micro coaching platform. Please, everyone, welcome John Powers. John, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Adam, you're going to get me to the presenter mode. And let's confirm everybody can see my screen.
All set.
Are we good here?
Looking good, John.
yeah.
All right, thank you. So we're going to do a quick demo of CoachFeed. And so where I'm at right now is the homepage for CoachFeed, where it shows a team that has been, entered as kind of a test here. And what you'll see here is, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so I can move around. You'll see that you can sort your team by direct reports or the entire company. And this blue bar here shows you a coaching playbook. So in order to understand CoachFeed and how it works, really you've got to understand what powers CoachFeed. And this is the way I always start my conversations with folks, by going to a candidate view. And so candidates a little misleading. These would be your employees within your sales organization at different levels, sales reps, inside, outside, sales managers, what have you. And hold on for 1 second. I was going to share my screen here. I was going to show my video. Adam, can you turn that on for me? Let's just keep moving on. All right. So here, what we do is we perform a battery of assessments on an employee or a manager in order to create that candidate profile. And here you'll see the different types of assessments that we do. We do a custom DISC assessment. We do a motivators assessment. We do an HVP or decision-making assessment. We do the Big 5 assessment, which is a temperament assessment. And then we do a sales assessment. Each one of these behavioral assessments takes about 10 or 15 minutes to complete, and the sales assessment takes about 30 minutes. So that creates a candidate profile. When you have all of the profiles in, you can sort the scores to display. So if you're looking for the best person on your particular team for an outbound sales role that's maybe opening up, the algorithm will score who scored the highest in outbound sales. And so you can see there are 9 different sales job fit categories. You can also sort by their sales tendencies. So if in your industry, say preparation is the most important piece of the sales process, you can sort by preparation. And again, those scores and the people that scored the highest in preparation will simply rise to the top. So here is where I kind of switch it up a little bit. And I think Dr. Bob mentioned something about this, but if you can't make fun of yourself, then what good are you? So this is a demo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log out here real quick, and I'm going to log back in as myself. So this is my test site, and you can see I have some candidate profiles here, some test profiles, but up here, I can jump into my profile. So this is a manager's view inside of CoachFeed. So I know I jump around a bit, but what you need to understand is what powers CoachFeed so we can get into what CoachFeed is. So I'm going to do a very fast overview of what the data shows in a candidate profile. And this is mine that I did honestly. I might say that I did the best that I could. So these are my selling tendencies. There are many of them: preparation, targeting, connecting, everything down to digital communication. And you'll see there's an overall aptitude score at the bottom. These little globes right here are the global average for that particular tendency. So as you can see, I scored pretty high. I've been in sales for quite a while, and I've got a lot of operational experience too. So those are my sales tendencies, and it'll show a challenger style, and you'll see a common thread here. We'll be listing strengths, coaching points. This is all meant to help you understand everyone on the team. So if I go to working tendencies, here we go. So this is how I work with others. And so be intentional and be mindful are what we consider coachable traits. If as you can see, I need a little bit of work with my emotional control and my empathy. I get a good laugh about that, but that's me. It's unbelievably accurate. And so that's how I work with others. This is my outputs and outcomes. This is whether or not I can do my job or not. And so for one reason or another, my confidence level is low. I'm not sure why, but I have some guesses. But I also have some be mindful areas. But if I look over here, be myself and be masterful, I'm also very good at other things too. So I do get the job done. And it shows me my development style, and again, what to watch for and strengths. Excuse me. So next we go to motivation. This is the motivational drivers. This is what motivates me. And we're not going to go into a great deal of detail today. Of course, I'll do a personal demo for, just reach out to me if you'd like one. But it shows me as being self-protective and sacrifice. Just great things to know about yourself, and really great things to know about your teams and what motivates them. It also gives me my motivational style, and again, what to watch for and strengths. Under decision making, it gives you your decision drivers. So as you can see over here, I'm dedicated to my future. If someone completes the assessment and they come up aimless down here in their future, that should be a concern. And again, all of these things are taken as a whole and pushed into and for lack of a better term, fed into CoachFeed, and that determines how CoachFeed works. So it's based on science, not someone's gut feeling. And then it'll give me my decision-making style, again, what to watch for and strengths. So we have my behavioral tendencies here. This is DISC and TARP. If you're not familiar with that, there are these blue explainer buttons up here that go into a great amount of detail. We also have a video series for training. So I like to think of this as how you act in your natural habitat versus how you act in a group, and whether or not you're stressed when you get to that group situation. So it shows my behavioral style, what to watch for, and strengths. And then this is the Big Five temperament matrix. This is how neurotic I am. And we won't go into too much detail here, but I'm not neurotic. And I'm thankful for that. So again, that blue explainer button up there will go into a great amount of detail. We do a lot of test assessments with companies, with people that are performing well or people that are struggling. And then we go over those assessments in detail. And then we talk about CoachFeed. So this is how I act under stress. And it also gives me coaching points here. So there's a great deal of information here. And then because I'm a manager in this system, It shows me how I manage people, which again, this empathy comes up, and I need to be aware of that. But it also says how I manage my outputs and outcomes, and how I manage myself. So you can see that emotional control pops up again. So, I hope I'm getting better. And CoachFeed helps me get better, and I'll show you how. It also shows me my manager style, and then there's a link to our Manage Smarter podcast. So what is CoachFeed? Now you know the information that goes in and powers it. So let's go. There are 3 feeds: sales mindset, sales credibility, and account-based coaching. Sales mindset gets into their head. As Lee mentioned, you've got to get your sales mindset right before you can get your sales right. So what it will do on Mondays, and this is micro coaching, it happens 2 to 5 minutes at a time. On Mondays, you get a statement about yourself. And as you can see, I can be a little bit of a bull at times. It asks me to reflect and respond upon 2 questions. I respond here, and as you can see, Lee even commented on this. So I respond to the questions here, and then my manager responds, but we don't push anything to the managers to do. They can come in and use it at their discretion. But most of them use this information as starter conversations during their one-on-ones, and they really get to know their employees better. So that happens on Mondays. On Wednesdays, we do what's called sales credibility, and this gets down to the person's sales skills and what they need to improve upon based upon that sales acumen and other factors. So it makes a statement about yourself based upon the assessments. It asks you to reflect and respond in the same manner that sales mindset does, but it also provides you a piece of collateral, a video of a short read. In this case, I need to connect with people better, and it's giving me a piece. If I click here, it takes me to SalesFuel's website for a quick read on multi-threading and how I can use it to improve my sales skills. So instead of a generic, like what I like to say, a generic sales management platform, this is very granular. This is specific to each individual person, and it's all automated. So that's sales mindset, that's sales credibility. We already went over mindset. Now let's go over account-based coaching. That's the third one. These happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And your sales folks can pick up to 4 accounts that they want to close that year. They want to land, like this one here for Xfinity and Comcast. You want to land this year, you want to upsell, you want to save, and there are other categories. And it asks you, it has reflect and respond questions to move you through that cycle of selling that client or upselling that client or saving that client. But it also provides you, we have researchers that provide you data on that company, that company's industry, etc. Things like their finances, their technology that they use, leadership changes, not only again for that company, but also that company's industry. So each rep can go in here, they can take a quick look at each link and find whether or not they find that piece valuable. In my experience, it helps me prepare for my next conversation with that key account. I use information in emails. I use information during meetings, during slides, and overall, it helps me look very much prepared and very much in the know about what's going on with those key accounts. So I'm sorry I didn't share my video here, but that kind of wraps up a quick demo. So if everybody's, Adam, can we turn on the audio for the 46 people that are remaining, or can they type in questions?
They can type in questions. I can check them out for you. let's see, Carolyn Best had a question. Can you use this like Centio or Sprockets where you see traits of top performers as compared to candidates?
I'm not sure about that. And I always like to be transparent, but we will make a note of that and I can do some research there and find out for you.
Addie Reeves had a question. Are there industry specific options such as mortgage?
Yes, when you identify a company that you want to target, you pick the industry that they are in. Did that answer that question? I hope.
I hope so. We don't have any at the moment else. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to type those in. We've got 5 more minutes of John's time, so please feel free to ask any question you might have on the GoToWebinar toolbar. There is a questions box.
And if you'd like, Adam, I think we probably need to share my email real quick. Can we do that if they'd like to reach out to me personally for a demo?
Yeah, sure. I think I just type it in here. It's just this J Powers, his last name, at SalesFuel.com. I'll just send that to all. So I think everyone should have received that now.
Okay. And we work with small companies and large companies. And the normal process is we do a demo, we give you the tour, and then what we do is some test assessments on your team so that you can check validity and accuracy. We go over those in detail, and then we have options for trials. We do 30-day CoachFeed trials where, depending on the size of your company, you put yourself as a manager, or you put a manager in, and maybe 3, 4, 5 reps underneath that manager. You turn CoachFeed on, you do the assessments, and basically when you turn CoachFeed on, it's active and it is actively micro coaching your sales reps. It's getting their mindset right, it's improving their credibility, and it's assisting them with account-based coaching and assisting them with the data and intelligence they need to be most prepared for those meetings. Well, looks like there's still quite a few people online. Sure, there aren't any other questions?
Nothing's come through so far. Addie said she'd follow up with you in email.
Addie, I don't know. I think I remember. Maybe I've already reached out to you. I remember connecting with an Addie recently.
Yeah, I don't know if we have anything else. If there's anything else you want to show before we can just wrap up a couple minutes early, it's up to you.
No, I'm good. I hope everybody appreciated I like to be transparent. Everyone, even, there are global averages. When you look at when you go back and look at the selling tendencies in the assessments, most folks, honestly, I'm not bragging, but most folks don't score quite this high. They're going to have plenty of yellows. They're going to have a few reds. You can see the average closing score is down here in the 60 range. So, we use all of that data on autopilot to bring these scores up over the course of a year. And then usually at the either 5 or the 11-month time frame, you reassess your entire team. And then we have a lot of reporting options here to show the differences between where they were and where they are now. So let's see what else. The only other thing that I could pop into here real quick for those folks that are still sticking around, I'm going to jump out of my profile real quick. Don't worry, it won't take me long. I'm going to jump back into our test site, because one thing that I didn't show up as I did not show up as toxic. So we have 13 different toxicity types. So at times someone will show up as a yellow flag or a red flag as being potentially toxic to your current workforce. And so if we go into Laura's candidate profile here, and we look under her work tendencies, and we scroll down, she shows up with a toxicity alert as being a vacillator. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to remove this person from the team, but this person, as they answered the questions, showed up as an elevated risk for the following behaviors. So it's very important. We also have a hire product that is used for hiring. It's kind of a sister product. So it's very important to know your team, whether or not you're bringing on new members or you're using CoachFeed and assessing your current team. It's very important to know this, and it's very accurate, and sometimes it's spooky accurate. Any questions, Adam?
Let me see. Shireen Clark had a question of the cost of CoachFeed.
Well, we normally don't share the cost right away, but what I will do is say that we've based the cost on the number of seats and the size of the organization. And I'll make a general statement that it's, how do I want to say this? It's very affordable. We've never had, of the hundreds of demos that I've done and the clients that I brought on since I started with SalesFuel, I've had no one push back on the cost of CoachFeed or its sister product Hire. So it's all about the size of your team. So there's not a big expense if you've got a smaller team. Very manageable.
John, was there an offer you were going to give to people? I thought that was referenced.
Yeah, there was an offer to our, well, I don't have anything handy, but I'm going to pop into, since I'm showing my site here, our sales manager training. I would encourage you to stop by the sales manager training site on our website. And that is a 2-month, very intensive manager training program that is now done online. And there are 36 modules, and it's working with your managers to instruct them on how to be better coaches for their sales team. So, and at the bottom here, you can sign up here, and we also, the guy that designed it is Kevin Davis right here. And although we do our own facilitation, and then down here at the bottom, we do a practice lesson or a complimentary lesson that you can sign up for. So if you would like to discuss sales manager training, please reach out to me personally, and I'll do a demo of that for you. So if you're looking to improve your sales managers. So the cost of that is obviously different than when everyone used to send their sales managers to Atlanta or Vegas or Louisiana, and you had to pay the tab associated with that. It's kind of the same concept, but online now.
All right, I think that about wraps it up for today then.
All right, thanks everyone for sticking around. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Okay.